Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how to blow your own horn, literally. So we're going to be looking at the cow horns that the foresters use. So we have these here. These are used as hunting horns. Now these horns are really simple to blow. That's the same as if you were playing a brass instrument in today's world. I'm a trumpet player, so it's a little easier for me to catch the hang of it. It's very, very simple. All of our natural horns that we find in nature are all a matter of buzzing your lips, because we don't have a reed that we're getting to vibrate. We're getting our lips to vibrate, and then that's going to make this cone shape vibrate and the air inside coming out. The size and the shape of your horn is actually going to determine the sound of your horn. So every single one is going to sound slightly different. So good thing we're not trying to play these in tune in an orchestra or anything like that. And the other nice thing about these is that in a lot of the medieval hunting horn calls and the way that these are designed is that we're not worried about getting different pitches, different notes. All we're worried about is getting a short blast, a long blast, and the pauses in between. So that's what they were using in order to create all of the different horn calls. So you don't have to be worried about trying to get different pitches, because if you're not a professional player, it's quite difficult to do that with these horns. Now, the basics of all of these start with your lips. And I'm going to purse my lips really tight, stretch my skin over my teeth. That's going to get a nice little seal there, and I'm going to buzz my lips so I've got air coming out through a very tightly controlled space. So I'm going to take that action, and I'm going to do that buzzing my lips against the cone of the mouthpiece. Now you could have a horn like this one where it was heated up, just a cone drilled out, or you could have an actual brass mouthpiece for playing a brass instrument that was also period. Either way, it's all the same mechanics. So I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm getting a very high note because I am very tight. I'm keeping a tight buzz. I'm putting a lot of air through. That's because I'm a trumpet player, so I'm used to that kind of control. Most of you are going to get a lower sound. It might sound something like this. That is something that I would expect to hear from most people. And for those of us who do play, we're able to get those two different pitches. We can actually create a little bit more nuance in what we're doing. But as I said, usually that's not in period calls. So it's just a matter of keeping your lips tight. The amount that you are keeping your lips tight and buzzing is what's going to change the pitch. So the looser you are, the lower the pitch. The tighter, more control you have, the higher the pitch. And you can start out one and go to the other. So I can do this. And I can change pitch like that. But as I said, with medieval horn calls, we're not worried about that. We're worried about a short blast, long blast, pauses in between. So it might sound something like this. So different calls are going to be written out different ways. I'm working on that. I'll get that out soon. But basically think of it like Morse code. You're dealing with a series of dots, dashes, and the spaces in between. But you want to work on the mechanics of being able to tighten your lips to be able to blow on these. This is our standard cow horn. Now we do have two other kinds of horns that we use in the SCA. So some of you might recognize this. This is a shofar. This is a Middle Eastern instrument. It's a ram's horn. Shofar is a horn made from any natural horn that is not a cow bull horn. So if it's not a bull horn, then it's a shofar. If it is a bull horn, then it's a cow horn. It's not a shofar. A little tricky, but pretty simple. Now the difficulty with these is that you see the shape of this is different. It's a lot flatter. If you look at the tip on that. So this is not exactly a perfectly round hole. So it actually makes it a little bit more difficult for those basic mechanics to work. Now, when you read a lot of Middle Eastern manuals, this is usually used even today in rituals in the Jewish faith. A lot of them talk about putting it on the right side of your mouth and blowing like that and trying to buzz out the side. That's not a pretty good sound, but that's traditionally the way that they teach to play it. But you can play this exactly the same way that you would the cow horn. It's the same way. It is a little bit more difficult just because the shape of this. Much clearer, nicer sound. I can only get one pitch out of this. I don't have enough control on this horn in order to try and get multiple pitches. Because of this more elongated shape, it's a little more difficult for me being trained as a trumpet player with that perfectly round shape. So shofars, a little different sound as you could hear. Very traditional Middle Eastern, still used in Jewish faith today. There are certain horn calls that are still practiced for religious ceremonies, so you can actually find those if you're interested. And then we eventually evolved from the shofar and the hunting horn up to a trumpet. So this is a bugle, and the medieval trumpets were a single straight tube, and then they get to be like 9 feet long. So what happened was they said, you know, we can make this shorter and easier to handle. So then what we have is this, which is called a folded trumpet. You literally took the entire straight piece and folded it in a bend so it's more compact and easier for me to grip like that in order to play. So modern bugle, otherwise known as a folded trumpet. If this was a true folded trumpet, this would be a little bit longer because you would have a little bit more tubing to work with. We have a modern trumpet mouthpiece. These were the same. These were either welded right on or it was a separate piece like this, but in medieval times a lot of this was just welded on as one piece, not a separate mouthpiece. But it was the same basic shape, and we're dealing with the round shape. So with these, it is a lot easier to be able to get different pitches, and we don't see these so much in hunting situations, especially as far as the forester activities. We're not looking at using trumpets in hunting. They would use the cow horns, the shofars. They're much more durable, much more resistant to weather, whereas these are reserved more for ceremonies and official gatherings. But with these, we can get a range of pitches by loosening and tightening our lips over our teeth and buzzing. And as I said before, the looser, the lower it is, and the tighter, the higher it is. So I can get a wide range. Now, we don't get any half pitches, right? We just get whole pitches out of this. You know, we get half pitches later on when we get the trumpets that have the holes in them in the Baroque period, and then the valves much later. But we can still get a number of series of notes out of this. So when we start using these, then we are looking at different pitches, not just the length of the notes, the length of the pauses between the notes. So that's when we get to hear fanfares more or less like what we're used to hearing. Right? So that fanfare call is something that's more reliant on the pitches as well as the length of notes. So that's just a real quick tutorial on how to blow your horn. If you don't have a trumpet or a cow horn or shofar at home, you can actually just grab a small piece of garden hose or plastic piping. You know, you just want to keep it, you know, about that size around. So you're looking at maybe an inch, 3/4 inch around. And you can just practice with that. Just practice with that, just getting used to it. And then you'll be ready to go when you're able to get your hands on a horn. So I hope that helped you out with just a real quick lesson on how to be able to blow your own horn. I look forward to seeing you guys next time.